Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Look, it took less than 12 hours to get super woke at the Olympics this year in Italy, and it's not a good thing. We've got 3 athletes already destroying America with their nonsense and saying that, they don't feel great about representing the USA. How did they get funded in the first place? And what do I do and who do I complain to never see this again? You should not be allowed to represent your country if you try to pretend that there's some part of the country that isn't worth representing. The Olympics are supposed to be a time of unity, and yet we have nothing but a divide. So let's jump into some of the early stories about 24 hours in as of the time you see this video, and we got to talk about it. So here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. I can do that with your help, so please double check you're still subscribed to the channel. If this is your first time or your 1000th time, just look down below, look at the subscribe button. If it's gray, it says subscribed and you're good to go, although you may want to turn on your notifications. If that button is red, click it and turn it gray, and then click on the notifications bell and turn all notifications on so you don't miss anything. I do a lot of content each and every week, including the weekends, and I'm trying to get the news out there that maybe you aren't getting. And believe it or not, there's plenty of that we've seen this year. And ahead of the Milan Olympics, well, there's been some ridiculousness. So let's jump into the story as Olympic skier Gus Kenworthy posts graphic anti-ice message ahead of Milan Cortina Games. Now, this is not stellar. It's not spectacular. It also has a blacked out image here of Gus Kenworthy, which is fine. I'm okay. Kenworthy is a British-American freestyle skier. He's set to compete for Great Britain, not the US, and he shared an Instagram photo this week of words on the ground. F ICE written in snow. It seems to be written in exactly what you think he did to make sure that he made his point. In other words, urine. He urged Americans to contact their senators and oppose the Department of Homeland Security and anything else that actually makes us a sovereign nation, which is not a good look. And it hasn't been a good look for a long time. Olympic athletes started taking to the field in protest in ways that, were frankly offensive to many Americans. And they don't care about that. They're set to offend. They're also set to compete and oftentimes using the American flag and their dollars to make those dreams come true. And I have to ask a question, and you can answer it in the comments section below. Should we sponsor this kind of hate for the country they're supposed to be representing? Because it's not really a financial benefit to the U.S. And if you take a look at the white elephant stadiums around the globe,
no Olympic Games would be complete without its grand Olympic Stadium. But what happens to these stadiums after the Games end? Most of these very expensive stadiums are barely used after the Games themselves.
You'll start to realize that the Olympic Games have become more of a burden than something to boast about. There's no longer unification at the Olympics. It's now set about dividing. And worse yet, you have people who, came to realize the value of the United States over the years. And when you look at the coach for the Miracle on Ice, or the captain who spoke out recently, you recognize that, despite the blunt warnings, they just ignore it. And this is what I'm referring to, an article over on Outkick, which you can go and see, that talks about this. If you thought that the Grammys were bad, they ain't got nothing on the Olympics. And that's an interesting take. And we have some video clips to share, and I think we should. So when you're looking for points of reference in these stories, this is what they're referring to. This is Hunter Hess. He's part of the USA freestyle team, and he's pretty ridiculous if you just listen for a moment. Here we go.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. If it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. So yeah, I just kind of want to do it for my friends and my family and the people that support me getting here.
And all this guy is doing is distancing himself from anything that people find offensive. And maybe that's the coward's way out. But if you start mentioning things like ICE, if you start talking about certain policies, you're diving into a part of politics that you likely have little information on. It's kind of like Ricky Gervais time, as far as I'm concerned, for all of these athletes. And they need to recognize that they're there for one specific reason and to represent one specific country. And whatever the faults of that particular nation, you don't hear other athletes espousing their personal opinions. And I'm all for free speech, so don't misunderstand. But we should not have to sponsor this kind of nonsense that's being spewed around the globe. And again, Hess is not alone. Amber Glenn decided to get her licks in, and likely to the detriment of her future financial earnings. And you know what? She deserves that as well.
It's been a hard time for the community overall under this administration. I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong. I know that a lot of people say you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all.
Politics affect us all, and I'm going to use my platform for blah, blah, blah. And you know what? That's a great sentiment, maybe. But again, Amber, that's not why you're there. And I think a lot of people are kind of reaching that point. You're not there for that purpose, and we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to hear anything about your politics. We want to hear about your sport and your performance and how you think you're doing compared to others and what you think of your teammates. We want to hear some kind of interpersonal stuff, which NBC used to do extraordinarily well, but they've decided to go in favor of asking very divisive questions that continue to divide the audience. And we'll get to one last clip here before we get to an actual response at the opening ceremonies for the USA as a whole. Because despite many stories saying the opposite, the United States was greeted very positively, even to chants of USA, USA, which I'll also play for you in a moment. But let's get to what our friend here has to say.
I feel heartbroken about what's happened in the United States when, I'm pretty sure you're referencing ICE and some of the protests and things like that. I think that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure that we're treating our citizens as well as anybody with love and respect. And I hope that when people look at athletes compete in the Olympics, they realize that that's the America that we're trying to represent.
Well, and that's the biggest problem, is that he couldn't finish the sentence because he knew he'd get nuked by anybody paying attention. And look, if you are going to go out there and shoot your mouth off and then claim free speech, you're going to have to deal with a lot of ridicule and, mockery. And you know what? Chris Lillis does probably deserve it. But finally, the moment that the VP and his wife decided to walk with or be a part of the opening, the moment that the vice president and his wife, the second lady, were to walk in or to participate in the Olympic Games, the crowd went nuts. And forgive the terrible background music that may exist in this clip, but I think it's important to play this with full context. And here we go. Did you guys hear a chorus of boos? Because I certainly didn't. And I think that it's kind of hysterical that that's where they're headed with these types of clips. And it doesn't actually represent what actually happened or occurred during the course of the Olympic entrance for the United States. There was no chorus of boos. There was actually chants of USA in the background, if you listen closely enough. And it's one of the reasons why this story I pulled up on for a reason. The Winter Olympics was barely 12 hours old, and we already got the dirty snow hitting the fan. Yes, I know that was lame, but whatever, I tried. It's kind of humorous, actually. Anyway, if you thought the Grammys were bad, they ain't got nothing on the Olympics. By my count, we've already had half a dozen American athletes bash the United States, and I'm not sure an actual event has even taken place yet. And again, a lot of people don't know that, and the Olympic Village has a whole other problem, and so do Olympic fans that have traveled all the way to Italy to view this, because the Super Bowl starts at 12:30 a.m. local time for them. So watching the football game, which is another event likely to be marred by political divisiveness, is, well, just maybe out of reach for him this year. But the most notable comments came from Team USA skier Hunter Hess, which I played just a few moments ago. He told the media that he's not proud to be wearing a USA jersey, and that B is in this for his friends and family. Now, while not a direct quote, the sense of what he was saying is represented here, although I would have used a direct quote. He says, not his country, never for his country. That's not a good sign. And of course, Wall Street Mav was out there with the link to the quote. And you can find this article, as I said, over on Outkick, and therefore get all the links to all the video clips and so on and so forth, including this one from Chris Lilley. But Mike Eruzione sounds off on woke Americans, and he should. Just because we're wearing the flag doesn't mean we're representing everything that's going on in the U.S. I just kind of want to do it for friends and family supporting me here, referring to the quote from Hunter Hess. I mean, what a start to the games. Well, it wasn't great. But back when we didn't spew this BS and publicly bash our country because of TDS, a novel concept, I know, but American pride used to be a thing. You know? Anyway, Mike blasted Hunter on Twitter, rightfully so, saying Hunter Hess, U.S. snowboarder, saying he doesn't represent his country but his family and friends, then don't put on the USA uniform. Maybe just put on family and friends. Some athletes just don't get it. And I think that's ultimately at the heart of what's been missing from the Olympics for a while now. National pride. They've tried to make national pride a problem here in this country when every other country in the world is more than happy for their athletes to represent them, and vice versa. If you have the privilege of living here in the U.S. and have access to some of the greatest facilities and training personnel, you should be grateful to be alive and living here. And you should also be grateful when you get there for having a country that supports you going there en masse in a way that basically no other country actually does. To put it more succinctly, I think this is where he's coming from. Sure, he's not a snowboarder, but you get the idea. Basically, if you don't want to represent the USA, then you're welcome to take your stupid skis and get the heck out of here. We don't need you. We don't want you, and I'm sure somebody else is missing out on a spot. This article written by Zach Dean is an interesting take, but one that I take to heart, not just because I agree with it, but because I think it's thoughtful, and there's an attempt to be, more than truthful, but accurate, which is, well, what I would say would be missing from most of the mainstream coverage here in the USA, who would have you believe that we're hated around the globe and that there's no enthusiasm or interest in watching USA Olympians at the games, which is not true. But what has happened is I have zero interest in this Winter Olympics. I will probably not take a moment to watch anything other than the clips I've seen because, well, they've pushed me away, like they have with so many other fans. So I ask you again, friends, as we come to a close for this particular video, do you support Team USA anymore? Should we still continue to pay for all of these amazing opportunities for these people who clearly are not in love with the country they're supposedly representing? And should we continue to fund training centers and travel for a team so at odds with its own nation that they flip and represent others, which is another story we didn't get to about Great Britain and some other athletes that flip-flop in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Let me know your thoughts about the Olympics, the Olympic coverage, and whether or not you can take anything the mainstream media says to the bank in the comments section below. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just not watching the Olympics.